Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about while loops, condition control while loops. So a while loop, it's a loop, it repeats. So if you look at this, a while a condition is true, we do something. So you set counter to 0, for example, on start, this is a blocky code. While button A is pressed, you do something. Okay, so our syntax in Python is a little different. Look at this program. Enter an integer 21. It says 21 is positive. Enter integer 0. We say 0 is neither negative or positive. Enter integer minus 9. Minus 9 is negative. So let's take a look at this program. Here's the program. Num is equal to 0. While true, num is equal to enter a number. We check using an if statement. You all know how to do if statements by now. It says if number is 0, it's 0. It's neither positive nor negative. Number is greater than 0, we say it's positive, else it's negative. So if you run this program, here's what you get. So you enter a number, it tells you that it's positive. You enter a negative number, it says it's negative, and okay, it keeps on going, no matter what I type in, right? So here it says, are there any problems with this program? So what is the problem that we see with this? I can type, never stops, right? So what does it do? This while true loop that we have here, we go back to the code and take a look, while true, so it's always true. It never stops. At some point in time, our program should end, right? Otherwise, we get bored of doing the same thing. So what should we do? How should we change this program? How can we write a loop? While a certain condition is true, then you write a statement. So we don't want to write while true loops. It's usually not recommended to write while true loops because then it never ends. We have to somehow come out of the loop. Now look at this code. Now we're going to trace this code. Hand tracing code is very important. Being able to step through code and write things on paper. So here is the Python tutor that helps us step through code. So you should all use pythontutor.com. You go to visualize and you type your code in, or you copy it and paste it. In this case, I already have it here. So we're going to start stepping through this code. A is equal to 1, right? That's where we start. So say next, while A less than 10. So here, A is 1. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. So we go into the loop. Notice the indentation is very important. We go next and we print A. That's what's going to happen in that output screen. Print A, it prints 1. Then A equals A plus 2. What happens to A? A becomes 3 because 1 plus 2 is 3. So A becomes 3. Then we go back and check. That's what the while does. It automatically knows when you write a while to go back and keep checking. 3 is less than 10. See, A is 3. 3 is less than 10 is true. So it's going to go into the loop. It's going to print 3 on the next line. Then what happens? A becomes 3 plus 2. A becomes 5. We go back and check. 5 is less than 10. Yes, true. 5 is less than 10. So we print A, which is 5 on the next line. Then A equals A, which is 5 plus 2, 7. 7 goes into A. Then, so A becomes 7. Then we go back and check. 7 is less than 10. Now you know how it goes. We're going to print 7. Now 7 gets added to 2 and gets put into A. So A becomes 9. 9 is still less than 10. It's going to go into the loop, print one more time. A becomes 11. 9 plus 2 is 11. 11 less than 10 is false. So we're going to come out of there and the code is done. So that's how you step through code. So when you hand trace code, you must write those things down. So let's take a look at this code. What happens here? It says type up this program in Replit and run. What do we get? Okay, so let's type it up. I'm going to go here. I'm going to say new folder. This is Unit 5. So we'll call it Unit 5. I'm going to create a new REPL and we'll call it sample 1 loops. Okay, and while it comes up, let's go here and take a look. What does it say? We start with def main. Num starts out to be -1. While num not equal to 0, we read a number from the user. So let's type this out. Def main. Num equals -1. while num not equal to 0, that's what it says, while num not equal to 0, colon, very important syntax. While num is not equal to 0, we read a number from the user, we print it. So num equals int input, and we say enter a number. What else does it say? Does it say anything more? Enter integer or 0 to quit. So that tells the user something, right? It says I have to enter 0 to quit. That's important. Okay, then what are we doing? We are printing the number. Print, you entered, and we print the number to the user. And then we print a goodbye message. Notice where we print the goodbye message. That's important, the indentation. So what is inside the while loop and what is outside the while loop is very important. And then I go all the way to the back and type main. So notice these two statements are part of the while because they are the same indentation level. This print is outside because that's right below the while. So all this indentation matters. That's what says what is inside the while loop and what is outside the while loop. And this main is completely outside the function, which is right under the D. So what does this say? Before we run it, let's take a look at it. Num starts out to be -1. Num is -1. While num not equal to 0. So is num equal to 0? No, it's -1. It's not equal to 0. So we're going to go into the loop. Num equals enter a number. We read a number from the user. We convert it to an int and we put it into num. If it is, whatever it is going to get printed. Notice we're not checking. So if the user enters 5, it's going to get printed. Then it goes and checks. Is the number equal to 0? No, they entered 5. So 5 is not equal to 0. We go in and read again. So let's run it and see what we get. So if I type in a number, it says you entered 7. You entered 6. You entered 4. You entered -5. Doesn't matter, positive, negative, it will read it. When I entered 0, it says you entered 0 and it quits out of there, which is what we told it to do. Read the number, print it first, then check it. Okay, so stepping through code is a very important thing to do. So in order for a loop to stop executing, we must make something happen. And we must do something to make the condition false. So in this case, if the user never entered a number, it would never become false. So if you commented out that line, for example, it would run and it would always print -1 because we are not reading a number from the user. We simply said while num not equal to 0, print it, and it prints -1. Num never changes. Whereas if you take this comment out, num changes by being read from the user. You read a number from the user and num changes. So then it is different. It knows that when the number is 0, it has to stop. So being able to change that condition is a very important thing. The while loop is a pretest, meaning it tests and then it does something. It tests the program first. So you read, you test it, you read, and again, order of statements matter. The way you write these statements matter. We'll find that as we go further. So hand trace this code. What does it mean to hand trace the code? Here, I'm going to put a text box here. When we hand trace, we must be able to write it on paper or type it out. So what does it say? Sum equals 0. So hand trace means we write down all the values. Sum is equal to 0. Num equals something we read from the user. Let's say user enters 4. That's the first step. While num not equal to 0. User entered num is 4. Is it equal to 0? No. So we are in the loop. Sum equals sum plus num. So what is sum now? Sum equals sum plus num. 0 plus 4 is 4. Then, let's put a comma there. We are reading num equals enter integer or 0 to quit. So let's say the user enters 1. Okay, so we read 1 into num. We go back to the while loop. We won't come out here. Notice the while loop always keeps going until we are completely done with the loop. So 1 is not equal to 0. So we are in here. Sum equals sum plus num. So we go to the next line. Sum equals, what is sum? 4. What is num? 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. Not there, down here. Then we read num from the user. Let's say the user enters 3. We go back to the while loop and check. Is 3 equal to 0? No. So sum becomes 5 plus 3. Now we know the drill, 8. And we read num from the user again. Num equals, let's say I enter 0. Is 0 equal to 0? While num not equal to 0. Is 0 not equal to 0? That's false. 0 is equal to 0. So we come out of there, and what we're going to print at the end of it, output, you should say, would be the sum of the integers you entered. It will print that text, and it will print 8 because that is what we got after going through that, right? So that is hand tracing code. And that is what I would want you to do for these things. You are supposed to hand trace code, step through it, and hand trace it. And this is what we will be doing in class today. So if you watch the video, you will be able to hand trace this code with me tomorrow and be able to write and run this budget program.